Mm. Yeah, welcome to KJTV. And we are discussing about the Gen Z of Kenya who have sent shockwaves, not only in Kenya, the whole continent of Africa, and the rest of the world is talking about Kenya's Gen Z, which is a new frontier. And I use this title, Kenya's New Frontier, from a poem by Kariri Gibran, the Lebanese poet, who wrote a poem condemning, comparing people. And that's where JF Kennedy, if you remember the strong statement about JF Kennedy, which is known, it is not what your country can do for you. Ask yourself what you can do for your country. Even if Kennedy never gave credit to Kariri Gibran, is the one in his poem, The New Frontier. So basically, now in Kenya, the Gen Z gave their demands, and the president has given in. He has dissolved the cabinet. What is your take on this, Gen Z? They seem to be doing so well than what other politicians have tried to do for many years. They have not succeeded. What is your take on that?
First of all, I personally want to really congratulate the Gen Zs for the pressure they have put on the government of Kenya to be where it is to do what we call a complete self-reflection.
Yeah.
And secondly, I want to mention that the Gen Zs have really done what so many over the years in Kenya have not succeeded to do, to bring a government to do a self-reflection out of a revolution from headless individuals on the street, leaders as they call themselves, only an idea that they are following, that they have put the government on the spot to an extent that he has to dissolve the whole entire cabinet. Really, what has made them do what they have is a combination of so many different factors. From the promulgation of the new constitution of 2010 that has given freedom to so many people to speak truth to power without fear of being intimidated by the government, to the revolutionary many universities and colleges that have taught it in Kenya in the last 10, 15 years that have given birth to so many informed young Gen Zs, to now what we may call the information superhighway that is revolutionary, found in our pockets at a click of a moment. You reach to so many millions of people. So it's really a combination of so many factors that has come to converge and to this specific time and period of time in Kenya. And don't miss this one big, huge reason why this has come to where it is. All these combined really knocked a government which was operating in the 80s playbook. If the government was not operating in the 80s playbook, we would not be where we are today. If they knew that they are dealing with a Gen Z that is so informed that they can converge online and within a few minutes that they can do what they were saying, that they were not keyboard warriors, but they were actually face people with energy, people who can come out in the streets. Remember, the government was saying these are just keyboard, spoon-fed
warriors
from high middle class, and they couldn't even make any noise, even outside of their compound. The dismissive government attitude really made this everybody to come out and do what they have done. So it's a convergence of so many things.
Of many things. As you say, it has been an accumulation of the people who fought for the first liberation, the second liberation of the country, with the expansion of education and our network, because their best weapon is only the smartphone and the bundles, as if I can quote Honorable Nyonka, that's what he said. But what do you take of the president? How he also responded, he listened to them. I mean, A typical African president does not cave in. He will say, "This is my government. I will do what I do." What do you comment about the president? What he did?
As I mentioned to you earlier on, he did use the 80s and early 90s playbook in his first response. Had he responded the first time and listened to the chances in the first few weeks of the protests, we would not be where we are today. The president was adamant, and he called them thugs, he called them criminals, and to date, we haven't had any criminals. That government, he said, will put them to book, has not put anybody to book. So his first response was not really very good. His second response, which he has been forced to respond to, he wasn't out of his own will. He has been forced to respond this way is when he realized that it's not only in the streets of Nairobi, it's not only in the streets of Kibera, like they used to say a few years ago. It's all over in Kenya that people are disenchanted. Remember recently when he took to Narok to worship somewhere in a church, he realized he couldn't even worship in a church comfortably like he used to. It was very uncomfortable. So everybody was up in arms, and therefore his response, yes, is good, but it's not entirely complete until we see the entire new constitution of the cabinet.
So, okay, before we come to the cabinet, the president had started this. After the election, actually, the majority, the coalition which had the majority votes, members of parliament, was Azimio. But he bribed those independent people, independent members of parliament, and then he got a majority, which was actually an illegality because according to the law, the coalition cannot change until 6 months after the election. So which means if we had to go with the majority, the speaker could have come from Azimio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yes, and that's why we mentioned earlier on in the discussion that he was using the 80s and early 90s playbook that Moi used to use, where you go for the leaders from regions and tell them, hey, come join the government, without knowing that the government, that the new constitution really has changed what a government is. A government is not just the president and his cabinet and a few members of parliament. A government really is the people. If the people take away their sovereignty from the people they have donated to, then that government is no longer government. He's finding himself as a cell.
Actually, members of parliament became pawns. He would sit in his state house and command them how they want to vote. Because even this bill, many people, the Gen Zs, they told them, don't vote for this one. But they were not listening. Then they voted. Then the eruption came on. Now, from here now, what is the way forward for the president? Because now he has put the cabinet down. What do you think now? What should be his cabinet look like if you are sitting now to advise him to form a cabinet, a fresh cabinet?
Just before you in fact, if a good advisor is the person who looks at where he has come from and where he made huge mistakes.
Yeah.
In his previous cabinet, which he just dissolved, we had people who were suspect. There were people who were even suspected murderers, whose cases were thrown out because they were now selected to be members of the cabinet. There were people who were suspect in court, who had a lot of corruption cases. So many of them, more than 3/4 of those, are very incompetent.
Yeah,
very incompetent in a manner that talk of any cabinet from the history of Kenya. This is the first cabinet which has been sitting in office for almost 2 years. Not one single of them has come out looking to be competent. In the previous government, we had people like the Professor Makoa, people like Dr. Matiang'i, who were really performing regardless of the situation they were in. Look at the previous government of the late Mwai Kibaki. We had people like the the late the name is going the late member of the cabinet. He was very good. You can remind me. His name was.
Yeah, I know the guy you are talking about. Michuki.
Yeah, the senior moments here, and we had a few people who were holding that cabinet together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to the history of Moi, also he had very few cabinet members who were very powerful, even though they killed him, like the late Dr. Ouko. He was a performer in his whatever ministry he went to. So if you go back to the history of Kenya, there were few people performing ministers who were doing that. But in his cabinet, zero, nobody was performing.
But I want you to look at the situation. You know, let us also be fair. It ran up towards election. Every indication was like Azimio La Umoja was going to win. And many people those who were potential were associated with Azimio. Actually, the people who remained, who were like orphans, who remained with the Ruto, were very few, and some of them were not competent because people were not sure whether he was going to win. The capable people were on the other side, so he had no option. Where was he to get this?
A president of a republic of Kenya or any other republic in this world has options. Once you win, you constitute a government. You constitute a government from the people who are capable, who are Kenyans, not those specifically
not the
who
friends
are supporting you.
Yeah.
Look, for example, if you go back to the history of the United States, when Barack Obama won the presidency, he reached out to his enemies, including the former First Lady, to become the Secretary of State. He reached out. He retained the defense minister who was from the opposite party. So it's not for him to say that there was nobody supporting him. That is disingenuous. It indicates that he's not a leader. A leader should choose any Kenyans who is capable to work and produce. It's not about who supported him.
So let's say who would you recommend to be in his cabinet of 14 members? I hear the Gen Z want only 14 cabinet secretaries.
If I were advising President Ruto, I would advise him to not look at people. He should look at what kind of characters does he want first. What kind of performing people does he want in his cabinet first? He should list down the requirements and the behavior and the character of the people he wants in his cabinet. Then he should not have names. If you list names, then you're missing the point. The point is not about who knew Dr. Matiang'i.
Nobody.
Until he was given a position. Somebody knew that he can perform. So there are some people, there are millions of Kenyans out there who can perform. So it's not about the Matiang'i or whoever it is. It's about what he wants in his cabinet. Because we have hundreds and thousands of Kenyans who are capable.
Now, the head of public service, Dr. Kosgei, I hear he lives in Nandi, and he charters on a helicopter every morning to Nairobi and goes back. That is the money, the government money, which is funding that. Now, and I want us to talk about the budget, because the next list I see where Gen Zs want is budget transparency. And it has always been a talk. If we are owing a lot of money, why are we paying a lot of money government expenditure? If you don't have money as a country, why can't we reduce our budget inside? Right now, our budget is, and that's where the transparency is. We are talking about the debt. You hear that Kenya, according to the constitution, paid it is debt a long time ago. They don't know where the money is going. So what will you advise him in the budget? Because that is a big monster in the house.
You know, the budget, in my opinion, even though it came as a red herrings, it is more to, there's more to it than actually the budget itself. Because if you say the government of Kenya has been paying debts that are no longer actually in books, it's because of corruption. Where is that money going? It's because of corruption.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, the first thing he should do is to bring in people who are clean, people who mean well, people who are competent, people who can perform. And once he gets them in, President Ruto needs to do one additional thing. Let the individuals do the job. Let him not micromanage the people who are competent. Let him empower the people. Let the people who are competent do the job. He will forever go down as one of the most successful presidents ever who ever lived in Kenya.
So he's not a hands-on president.
Yeah, he's too much of a hands-on. I remember probably last year, you and I on this specific studio, we talked that he appears to be too much hands-on, and that will backfire. Look, perhaps there are some people within the cabinet he just dismissed who are very competent, but because he was so controlling, because he has so much hands-on, they were not able to perform. So one thing he needs to do is stand in front of a long mirror, Dr. Ruto, look at yourself, find people who are competent, empower them, let them perform. Give them a broader vision of what you want, and they will perform.
So now, according to this budget, like the Eurobond, there is this issue of a Eurobond, and I want you to see. This is the Eurobond, how they have been taking money from the Eurobond, which the money we don't know where it has been going. In 2014, it was issued, which was to mature 2024 to 2 billion at 6.875. 2018, they took another 1 billion. 2019, 0.9 billion. And 2019, again, they took 1.2. 2021, 1 billion. This is again 2018. And 2024, again, they have taken 1.5 billion. Now, I really don't know how much we have been able to pay, because we are still accumulating debt, which means even if we were saying that he wanted us to work on our own debt, but he has accumulated this debt, and this is where the problem is. But this money, people don't know where it went. So what would we say about the budget on this?
You know, when you draw a budget is just a budget. It is a budget is a document that really estimates of what you intend to spend and where the money is going to come from. So it's more like a financial.
Hello? Yeah, we can't hear you. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, we lost you. You are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, a budget is a document really that gives an estimate of what you intend to do, and when the money is coming from, and how you raise the funds to finance certain projects and or recurrent expenditure like salaries and other social services. So the first thing, which I thought he did a good job, but he was not doing according to the law, was to really take stock of all the debts we have. And when you take stock, you say we have loan A and we have amortization for loan A, expectations of how we repay it back, the interest rates, where we are at, how much we have repaid, how much is remaining, at what interest we are paying it, and for how long we are remaining to finish the payments, so that we itemize loan A to 100. If there are 100 kind of loans, we look at each one of those, and then we look at where did this money go? Did this money go to the intended purpose? If not, why not? Then we have the ECCA, whatever our investigative bodies, to take over and find out whether the money was misappropriated. Then we will need to look at those and say, can we really continue to service these loans in the same state they are at, with these same interest rates, with this same amortization that we have? If the answer is no, renegotiate with the lenders of this money and and refinance. We have what we call refinancing. The government can refinance with them with new conditions so that they can either extend the term of the loan, reduce the amount they are paying to manageable levels, so that the government can be able to do what we call a balanced budget. And that's how we do it. And that's what I will advise him to do.
But when we borrow, like when we borrow internationally, we need to have a specific project that the money is going to do. If it was going to build a factory was going to produce and make money so that we add value. But according to the report of the Eurobond, that utilization of the Eurobond, they said that development expenditure as per INVOMIS is when 268 million went to INVOMIS for development. But they cannot account which development is that. But you can see that a lot of money went for the current expenditure. So are we really on the right track? Because that is not what is intended for the budget, and what can be fixed on that.
So again, I know you mentioned and asked a question, what could you advise Ruto to do? Take stock of the loans, like the one that you have specifically mentioned, the 2 billion euro bond. Historically, look at what the money was intended to do, and whether the intended purposes of the monies were actually used the same way. If not, then either he has prosecutorial powers. He can prosecute the people who took the money, and the money is sitting somewhere. The money just never disappeared to thin air. People took the money. People have money. People have that money somewhere, sitting somewhere, or in terms of assets, or somewhere stands in the foreign capitals. So, in my opinion, one of the greatest undoings for this government is the fact that he has not acted on corruption at all. Have you had any?
He hasn't acted on corruption
at all. Look at the first Uhuru Kenyatta's first cabinet. He dismissed, was it 7?
Yeah.
7 cabinet secretaries who, in fact, were mentioned in corruption cases. Now, fast forward to his cabinet, the Minister for Agriculture, who actually was part of a scheme meant to help farmers, he schemed poor farmers, giving them fake fertilizers.
Yeah.
And then he's protected.
He's protected because those members of parliament were given money to save him.
But the president has power. He will have just, he knew this guy has been mentioned. He's part of his cabinet. He will have said, you know what, step aside until you are cleared. This is very scandalous.
Yeah.
If you ask what really cumulatively came to where we are at today, small little things, and this is not small really accumulated to tell people now, what kind of government is this? The president is not even saying anything.
Well, there are so many things. I hope now that he will sit down, as he said, that he needs to look at where the problem is in the country. Corruption is one thing. There was a case even where his vice president, the case had been won and the money was surrendered to the state. But immediately they came back, they changed the rules and he was given his money. Many people's cases were dropped around Kimwarere Dam. All of those cases have died in his regime. So which means there is no corruption is allowed in this.
Absolutely. And if it's always accumulation of so many things, really. And the one that perhaps people don't mention about is his trip to the United States, where he went renting a very expensive private jet from somewhere in the Middle East, showing that he can spend money anyhow, anyway, from the covers of the Republic of Kenya, when people are suffering in Kenya, and he couldn't even take Kenya Airways. And again, 68 foreign trips in less than 1.5 years. 68 foreign trips in less than
that is too much.
1.5 years. He's been flying around without really. He lost touch with the ground because he's been flying at 35,000 feet every month. If I were him, the first thing is to stop going anywhere, stay at home, work there. I don't know why he would be really traveling out every single month, and he has aides. Now, meaning that he has cabinet secretaries he can be sending.
What do you say about Gen Z? Even when they were trying to say that they wanted to have a national dialogue with Raila Odinga and they came and said, no, they want that. They don't want that. Even they told Raila, forget about that.
Again, he was using the earlier years of playbook of politics, where the political elite will gang together, and when they see their lives are threatened, they reach out to their political foe and say, you know what, you and I are eating from the same spoon and same plate. Come help me out. And that's what has been happening for years. And I think the Gen Zs have seen it. And I really like that, because Odinga should just step aside. Otherwise, the rest spoils his name. This is a carcass that is already rotten. Unless he's going to be part of the rotten carcass, he will be swept by the wind.
I mean, who knew that we are going to have a Gen Z come? I mean, I really admire the way they are doing their stuff. They call themselves tribalists, partyless, fearless. That's what they have called themselves. And I think there is a hope that Kenya is going to change, and they are going to bring change to Kenya. But then, what can we? How can we be able to support them? It looks like they don't want our age at all. The baton has been passed. I don't know whether we pass a baton or they have grabbed the baton from our generations.
The analogy which you just mentioned there is very very humorous. In the Bomas, when Uhuru Kenyatta was having that Bomas meeting, he was telling William Ruto that instead of you waiting for me to hand over the baton, you were running the other way with the baton. You took the baton by force and then the other way. These Gen Zs have taken the baton, they have run the other way. They will never return that baton. It's us to follow them from behind and support their way, because whatever they're asking for is really what we've been yearning for years and years. I think that's why even parents are cheering them on. That's why everybody's cheering them on. And in even the most unlikely person who mentioned that even the daughter was part of it was Sudi. Sudi, the famous Sudi, who or the infamous, if you will, who said that even his daughter, who is a Gen Z, was donating money towards the Gen Z cause. So it's really tribalist, it's fearless, it's
don't you think that we our generation, we have been dogged with the tribe, and actually tribalism Kenya, we have all been a mob in groups of tribes. But this Gen Z, they have shown that they have gone beyond that. And it is now that Kenya is working towards nationhood.
Absolutely. I think the politicians, I would say yes and no to that statement. Yes, we have, the politicians have successfully over the years been able to manipulate people to be in groups of tribes. People themselves really don't care, because if you look in Kenya, the face of Kenya, you go everywhere, you find everybody everywhere.
Yeah.
But the politicians, when it comes to electioneering period, they always want you to remember yourself as coming from a certain region.
Yeah.
So it's politicians indeed who the elite who have been manipulating the population to think themselves as politicians. But now they are finding it harder for the Gen Zs, because the Gen Zs are getting their news from elsewhere. They are getting their information from elsewhere. They really have everything at the fingertips. Previously, politicians have been waited on to bring information to the people, and the information they always bring was, "Hey, you are Luo, you are this and that. We are being fought for. Let's unite so that we can fight." That is how it's been. Beyond that, now the Gen Zs know it's not about politics anymore. It's not about tribe anymore. It's about us, and us meaning ideals. We need jobs. We need better healthcare. We need on and on and on. That's what we need. It's not about where I come from.
I see member of parliament are now, they are even feared to visit their constituency because they are trying to be accountable. And I think if we, what they have started, if they can start to account for them all over. But with the Gen Z, how far are they going to go without, they are calling themselves leaderless. How far would they go without leadership?
And that's one thing that they for now, I don't think it's critical. The reason why I say it's not critical for now, because once they select their leaders, and you know from history, when you are seen to be the leader of a certain group, the elite politicians will target you. Either they get you into some situation that they compromise you, or otherwise they put you behind bars, or they kill you even.
Oh yeah.
So for now, until we see changes that are enough where the current administration cannot really point at anybody, I think it's good for now to see that they make those changes when we have some things in places like the IEPC now that is going to be selected. I think what they need to do and to continue doing is to recall those MPs, especially the weaklings, especially those who are who have no conscience, to send signals that this is what it is. And I'm thinking that once they recall them, let them put a change C in their positions so that we can start having their voices in formulation of the law in Parliament.
I think we need one cabinet secretary from the Gen Z.
Yes, we want to see them in Parliament.
Yeah, and if they can go like this, if they can make members of Parliament, and you know what started in Kenya, I was watching in Ghana Parliament. Members of Parliament were referring to the Gen Zs of Kenya. Even they were telling members of Parliament that the Gen Zs are coming to you like the way they chase the members of Parliament. And I was so impressed. I say, well, kudos to Kenya's Gen Z for what they are doing.
And what I wanted to mention to you is when Obama was president here several years ago, almost 8 years ago, he was saying invest in young people. I know he came to Kenya and he went to some, I think Kenyatta University there, and he was emphasizing that we need to invest in young people. Invest in young people, and Kibaki did. Kibaki did. And this is the result of investing in young people who, when they are educated, who, when they are informed, who, when they cannot find a means, they start finding out why is this. And the other reason why I wanted to mention this about the Gen Zs, President Ruto really misread the mood of the Kenyans and how they are informed. He's been going out and about saying that I'm looking for jobs elsewhere outside of Kenya, and sending them that I'm going to Germany, I'm going to Middle East to look for jobs for you. That is not how presidents look for people's jobs. Presidents go and look for jobs from outside to bring them to Kenya, not sending human beings to work somewhere in manual jobs elsewhere. Then he says that I'm looking for jobs for you elsewhere.
But
that's not his job.
You see,
his job is to create an environment where investors will come in, and those investors are the people to create jobs.
You know, the Gen Zs, they saw Ruto as a man who was going to bring the third liberation. He came with the hustler narrative. They saw themselves as hustlers who were going to get these jobs. They were going to get this money. He's going to invest on them. That's what he told them. They waited. This is 2 years. They found like this guy is not going anywhere because he failed them. So he created his own war, because the Gen Z, he promised them, you see, remember I was saying them, I will put the 100 billion for hustlers. So they were waiting for him to do, and they didn't do it. So they are holding him accountable. But then, first of all, we don't want the country to be in chaos, but I think we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, and for us to develop, we need to disconstruct what we have as a system. the system we have of is not that there's no meritocracy in our system. The system we have is really riddled with so many injustices, where if you don't know anybody, even if you are as competent as you can be, can't get a chance. You cannot get an opportunity. And the other thing that really President Ruto needs to know, let him, in fact, the people he should have first fired, and we could have never mentioned them, is his advisors. He has an economic council of advisors who, including somebody indeed, who, in my opinion, I held highly until recently when he said, and he was calling people names in Twitter. I find it to be unfathomable that somebody who is educated as he is could do what he did. He should know that in the event you are in a very poor economic downtime, the first thing you do is cut taxes. You don't increase taxes.
You don't increase taxes.
You don't do that. In any economy that is not doing very well, reduce taxes, attract more investors.
Spy economy.
Economy before you start raising taxes. I don't know who ever tell them that tax. You are going to kill that economy like yesterday. So the first thing is to do is announce tax reductions to where they were 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that it can bring back those jobs that have already left.
Members of parliament have actually become political tender entrepreneurs, because all they are doing, they go there to do business, to get any deals they could get, the tenders they would get to make money. So I think Gen Zs are right. They are saying even they want to know every tender, who was given a tender, and when did he apply, who are even the company which is given, who are the shareholders. That's what they are doing. And I think they will be bringing a revolution in Kenya. And we are going to ask, why do we do this? Because it has been always normal. Kenya, we have been not questioning ourselves that somebody can be given a tender, you don't know who, billions of money. So the politicians have been using that to get the money out.
Absolutely, yes. Because and he mentioned, President Ruto himself mentioned that he's going to go through the line items of the budget to remove those non-essential line items from the budget, including strategic initiatives budget or something that is shoddy, where the money is just being siphoned out in a way that you don't even question because you don't know what strategic is. It's faceless. It's a faceless project.
That is for people like Kindi, so that they can go to Turkey to sit for a meeting to strategize.
Correct. So those are just siphoning
and as you said, can you see like how the budget was for the Senate Speaker? They had increased from 35 million for the Senate Speaker to 203 million. For what? The national, what is that, for foreign travel, that they overblown it. So it was a very fun budget. Even if they were going to collect more taxes, it was still going to be used wherever they wanted.
And that's why now going forward, I think Kenya will never be the same again, because the Gen Zs have been able to do what so many have tried in the past not to do. They have actually joined Okia Omatata, who has been their own voice in Kenya for the last several years to do.
That's Okia Omatata is a very interesting guy. Yeah. Anyway, our time is gone now. Thank you for your time, and we can stop here and meet next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.